Hi, it's your boy Nate. I usually read books because reading is sexy, and if you're not reading, you're not sexy. But today, we've got the movie wrap-up. Guys, summerween in full spring. Most of these films that I watched in July have been horror films, and it's been great. I don't know, something about the heat, the gothic feel to the light and everything. I just love scary things in summer. Yeah, I think it was, what is it? Texas Chainsaw Massacre made me so scared of summer for some reason. Just like the light in the day, and I think maybe, I don't remember, but I think it was the first time where I realized horror can happen in broad daylight. Yeah, I don't know, something about the sun in that film and the light in it that makes me so terrified of America sometimes and just like its empty, forgotten spaces. Anyway, tangent, yikes, y'all. I watched 21 movies in July. Let's get through them. First film I watched out of 1977 is Oido, which is Oi Island, a Korean film. I think this is so important for any film bros out there that want to understand like Korean genre film and how they blend genres together to watch this. I think this really shifted Korean cinema in playing with different thematic leanings into horror, mystery, and murder. And I thought this was wonderful. But it's about a guy who goes to this island to find another guy who basically destroyed this island that is run down, habited by mostly women. Just a strong fishing island. It's a place where people go to just to get drunk and get fish. But it's also a cursed island. Some people have named this as sort of the Wicker Man of Korean cinema. And in part, yes, but it does this really interesting thing where it blends horror. It's a bit paranormal, but it's also a murder mystery. So it's a mystery film. It does this really interesting thing with perspective in retelling stories and then going back and forth. So it's not so much chronological, but it's pitted by perspective, and you get different voices throughout the film that push the film. And I love that. I love these sort of like localized perspectivisms between the characters to tell story versus like A, B, and C. So very interesting format-wise, and with a very, very incredible end. My stomach dropped when I saw the end. But it is from the 70s, so it does have this like very B horror element to it, and it's not entirely strong. It's an imperfect film. There are messy bits, but in all fun, it's just such a fantastic classic, cult classic, if you will. So if anyone wants like a good old horror rec from Korea, this is great. I definitely rec this. Horror kick continues with Pulse from 2001. I've been in a huge Kiyoshi Kurosawa kick this month, and we'll talk more. But this was my first from him. I think so. I think it was my first from him. I want to say I watched Tokyo Sonata a while back, but I can't remember. It was like before I started using Letterboxd, so I can't recall that because I always confuse it with some Koreda film. Anyway, off tangent here. Pulse is about the internet, the ether, and its loneliness, and how its loneliness is so infectious that it decimates the entire population of Japan. So good. My first strong foray into Kurosawa's filmography, where he uses this sense of eeriness to capture his films. So he's really heavy set in atmosphere when he creates a story, and I just thought this was so good. It's not so much that it's horror, but there is a major creep factor to it where it sinks under your skin. But there's this like fun thrill element and mystery element to it where as the story unravels, a whole world unravels and you're so encaptured by the world. And I love Kurosawa's world building. It's just immaculate and you really get to sink into the story. And they're not so much slow burns, they're just really atmospheric. And I always love that. Mood readers out there, I am also a mood watcher, but this is a mood watch with a strong story, or a stronger sense of story. I thought some of the CGI elements were a bit meh near the end of the film, the last quarter of the film, but at the beginning I thought it was just so well done. He does this thing with like shadows and outlines of people that just make a really, really creepy film. Really good, strong 4-star film for me. Next up, out of 2007, I did Gus Van Sant's Paranoid Park. It's essentially a skate video backed by a murder mystery, told through a coming-of-age drama kind of way. Honestly, I like this a lot more than Elephant. I love Elephant, and I love the color grading in that film. Absolutely beautiful. They did like a special Kodak film for that. But this, I think, is just layered so much more. I think it has that like 0708 teen angst quality to it, a bit punkish, but God, Gus Van Sant does so well with kids. Like, I don't know how he does it, but through backtracking shots, shots that follow people from behind, and also shower scenes, he evokes so many feelings out of teenagers where you don't have to show their faces, and I don't know how he gets away with that. It's brilliant. It really is. Yeah, I love this, like, murder mystery element to it where it unravels in a way that hits all its marks. Just a overall enjoyable film. And I really need to watch more of Gus Van Sant. Then out of 1998, I watched The Idiots by Lars von Trier. Say what you will about Lars. I hate him too. The things that he said, abominable. It's just disgusting. But he makes really interesting films. And this one, oh God, pissed me off so much. But it's a collective of performers that pretend to be of special needs, make their money that way. And they lived in this house that's as sort of like squatters of one of the guys' uncle's place. But essentially they adopt this woman, lonely in her own right, and she's a bit off. And it's a character study of her and her incorporation with this troupe of characters. First half of the film, I was just so annoyed until the very end. And it's just so crazy to me how sometimes, like, any DNFers out there, DNWs, people who don't, like, finish a film or finish a book. God, that last scene, the last image, really, all of the story builds up to that very last image. So you really have to sit with it in order to really feel the entirety of the film. Because if you walk out, you miss the entire point of the film. I think it's interesting, the choices one makes, a director makes, to show these scenes and then to end the film with a certain scene in order to really pack a punch. This one did it for me because I watched this film in parts. I was telling my friend as I was watching it, he had recommended it to me. I was like, oh God, I can't stand this film. I can't stand any of these characters. This is the reason why I don't really like Lars von Trier. And then he was like, just wait, just watch the whole film. And he was right. By the end, I was just like, damn, Lars got me. He got me real good. But yeah, all my art house cinema fans out there, it's a good one. It's interesting. I think it does something really interesting in terms of like character storytelling. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Next up, out of 1983, I watched this short film called A Girl. She is 100%. I mostly watched this because I had no idea that Haruki Murakami wrote a script, and he wrote the script for this film. It's based off of one of his short stories, I believe, and it very much feels like a Murakami short story. This one's just done, it's like good 10 minutes and worth your time. The director does something really interesting with like color story and photography as a way of storytelling. I thought all of it blended together worked really well. Worth your time. We have another Kurosawa film out of 1999. I watched Cure. So good. So good. I think I like this one a lot more than Pulse. They tie quite closely. I think Cure does a better job at creating the strong atmosphere that he's after. But yeah, it's a murder mystery about a man whose wife is losing her wits while also trying to figure out the crimes of a string of deaths linked to a serial killer. I'll leave it at that because, again, I think with Kurosawa films, it's like being invested in the world and seeing how it unravels and playing into the mystery that he really gets you. I had such a good time with this one. I just loved how hypnotic this one was. We still get like the same shadow people, outlines of individuals. And I think what really worked in this was you really see all of the elements in which Kurosawa works, and he has fantastic sound design. Really works well in here, but also the hypnotism that his film plays into. These repeated images and these repeated phrases that is part of the film, but also puts you in a trance, and that's what makes his film so atmospheric. But if I am to recommend one Kurosawa film to watch, it's this one. Loved this one so much. Then out of 2024, again, Kurosawa, watched his short Chime. This is about 50 minutes or so, and it's a newer release. Yeah, I've been watching a lot of like his older stuff, and then it was interesting to see this new one. It's a very stripped back film and plays with like the same elements that he always works in, but done in such like a cookie cutter kind of way. And so for any filmmakers out there, I think it's a very interesting film to look at structurally. But it's about a guy who is part of this cooking class, and he hears this sound, this chime in his head that won't stop bothering him until he tries to take the sound out. And in a cooking class, you know where that's headed, right? And then the chime follows into these other characters, and it builds horror in that way. But yeah, I love like the diegetic sound in this one. Kurosawa does this really fun thing where he uses silence, but then also diegetic sounds, so like sounds of like the wind howling and creaks and beeps of the house and everything. Just like he takes all of those like scary liminal hauntings of a normal household, you know, the hum of the refrigerator, just like that silence at night, and really cranks it up and makes you realize how horror just kind of exists everywhere, no matter how safe you think you are. And I love that. Next, out of 1959, had to take a break from all the horror and watched Imitation of Life by Douglas Sirk. Modern Ajima recommended this to me. Love you, Yena. Yeah, what a great, great film. Again, Sirk is the king of melodrama, and this is just like one of those classic... Sorry guys, my stomach is growling so much, but I told myself I'd film this video first, and then I can eat. Gotta work for our food, y'all. Gotta work for our food. But it's about a wannabe Hollywood star that falls in love with a man, takes in this woman with a daughter. She's black, and yeah, takes her into her home to be this caretaker of sorts for her life. As she's pursuing this career, she loses a lot of love. She realizes how awful of a mother she is. And it's this like beautiful look at what it means to sacrifice, to make sacrifices for your own ambitions. And if you are ever truly happy in any part of those sacrifices, in any part of your success, in any part of who you really want to be. It's a beautiful mother-daughter relationship story. I think what Sirk does so brilliantly is he takes care of every single one of his characters. They're foiled out beautifully, in and out. And he gives so much grace to them. Each character has their own spotlight, has their own moment. And the film ends with this like beautiful collectivism, black collectivism, that I've never seen before. I've never seen so many African-American actors and actresses set up in this beautiful parade at the end of the film. But yeah, I just love a good Hollywood melodrama. And this one was beautiful. Tears. Tears at the end. Back on Kurosawa, 2006. Someone had recommended this to me on my letterbox. They had told me they really enjoyed Retribution. Watched it. It's about a police detective who's investigating, again, a serial killer. But it becomes this like very strange romantic ghost love story, and I'll leave it at that. I thought this was fine. Again, the repeated images of like outlines of people, diegetic sound, and all of that stuff. I just think this one is interesting in particular because it takes this like tonal shift that you don't necessarily expect, and he's so good at that. Kurosawa can blend so many genres together and still create this like very evocative film. It's very trance-like again, and there's a woman in red, a ghost that appears throughout the film. And it's really her haunting and her beauty that really is the major highlight of this film. I think what he does with like slow motion and veils and silence is just remarkable in this one. Yeah, still enjoyable. Out of 2000, I watched Seance, another Kurosawa. I really like this one a lot. It's about a sound designer and a medium. They live very ordinary lives until something very unordinary happens, involving the kidnapping / murder of a girl. And I'll leave it at that. Really good. Had no idea that this was a TV film, but realized that afterwards. Still horrific. I think like between film and TV, Kurosawa just like has this ability to create a really atmospheric film. This one's heavily involved in nature, which surprised me because most of his films are set in the city. So this was really interesting to watch where he can still invent and create much horror out of nature. But definitely worth your time. I think it's a good story about expectations, chasing after your fantasy or your fantasy life, a betterment of it, how the unexpected can sometimes stop that, while also being this like great horror film. And because I was so fascinated by Kurosawa's filmography, I really wanted to go back to his like beginning stuff. So out of 1998, I watched School Ghost Story G. It's like a horror anthology made for TV, but he did one of them here. The anthology itself was fine. I thought the first one was really good, where it's about this schoolgirl who loves this boy, but she dies. And everyone finds out that she had this like awful eating disorder where she would not eat things in public or something, but as a ghost she was like eating everything. The boy eventually eats her as a ghost, and the ghost is inside her, and through that she sort of escapes herself out of this purgatory of other lost demons and stuff, and a lot of creepy stuff happens. Anyway, not his part, but that's what starts the film, and I really love that. Middle one, oh, what's his name? I forgot his name, but he did the Grudge, the Japanese version. He did those films. His shorts were fine. They were so short. They were like 5 minutes long. And then Kurosawa end capped the film with this, about a group of school kids that stay after school to do work or something, part of their club. Just like the whole school shuts down with shadows. Showed me a lot about how minimal Kurosawa works in. He can work in any environment and set where he really uses very little to his advantage. And I love that. I love that, like, you don't really need so much to create a film. You can really use what's around you and, like, bare essentials to create horror. I thought this was, like, really, really weak. Didn't particularly enjoy this, but did this really for, like, field notes and research purposes.
Leos Carax. Leos Carax.
Then out of 1984, I watched Leos Carax, Boy Meets Girl, his debut film, shot all in black and white, and yeah, that's all it's about. It's about a boy that meets a girl, where the boy is overbearing, wants to overshare, and is that guy that probably when he grows up, mansplains a lot. Beautifully done. I really, really enjoyed this, where I always was fascinated by Leos's films, where they feel so otherworldly. With such a small budget and done with so little, he still creates that in this very interesting Paris, shot mostly in apartments. Like the everyday mundanity that he finds the obtuse and really reimagines them in fascinating ways. Almost like Amelie in a way, but a lot grimmer, darker, pessimistic, but still with so much wonder. So it's this like really interesting tone. Yeah, honestly, I think this is my favorite from his. I think mostly because of how ambitious it is, but also sets in stone like what his filmography sets out to do, but done in such a bare minimum way. And I think that's just so humbling as like anyone who starts out to make films and such. I wish I had watched this earlier in life, like in my teens. I think I would have loved it a lot more. It is a bit young, and because he made it when he was so young, that explains it. But yeah, wish I had watched this much younger. Then in 1978, I watched Pedro Almodovar's short Salomé. I thought this was fine. It's like 10 minutes. It's basically about a man who falls in love with this veiled woman, and the veiled woman asks for a sacrifice, and he must sacrifice his son. We get a burning bush as a speaker of God, but it's all shot on 16mm, and it's just fun to see like the beginnings of one's work. Pedro's fascination with sex, God, and feminine power still very strong in this one and in his later films. Yeah, it was just fine. Then out of 1997, I watch Abbas Kiarostami's Taste of Cherry. For my film club's picks this month, we had to watch Kiarostami films. We watched 2. I'll talk about the other one later, but this one is about a man who seeks out other men to fulfill this very specific task, and I will not say what it is. I think that's just part of the mystery and beauty of the film. Kiarostami makes a very, very interesting choice at the end of this film to express his love for cinéma vérité, but I thought it was fine. I don't think it completely worked. I think like back then it probably worked really well. Looking at it now, I thought it was a bit meh. Very interesting. I think this one helped me understand what Kiarostami thought about people, different perspectives, and how a different broad range of perspectives can tell a larger story. And I'll get into that more in this other watch. But yeah, I thought it was really beautifully done. You get the same sort of like natural landscapes that delve into poeticism while also having beautiful words from his people. And yeah, it unravels into a very, very beautiful story. I'll leave it at that. Here we go, the other Kiarostami film out of 2002. I watched 10, which is about a woman, essentially a female cab driver, 10 different scenes with her passengers. And yeah, again, about his characters, we get the perspective of a child, the perspective of her sister, the perspective of a devout religious woman, and also a hooker. And yeah, I just love this like range of characters that really tell the story of this taxi driver who doesn't really talk much about herself and really pulls out stories of all of these other characters. But in doing so, you realize the politics of a person and not so much their character and their history. Though we do get that, it's a really interesting investigation of like what is pulled out of you and what presents you and what represents you by words, by actions, by thoughts, by viewpoints. Really about a woman complaining about the patriarchy in a car while circling through town. I thought this was powerful. I thought the end could have been a lot richer and said a lot more, but I think it's in Kiarostami's distance and his defense of people that leave breathing room to think and to make our own conclusions versus him hammering down a conclusion on you, which I felt very much in Taste of Cherry. His distance sometimes is just good, like thinking space and breathing room for us as an audience. And I thought this was just fine. 1971, Godard made a advertisement for a cologne called Shik After Shave. Cologne was called Shik. It's basically about a married couple complaining about the issues in Palestine on the radio. They come together to glorify this cologne aftershave, which I thought was just like really interesting, where advertisements can be political and they can say a lot about like the status of one's contemporary society and what they overall think about current events and current affairs. Yeah, I thought it was like really snarky, but it's definitely Godard and I love that. Then in 2015, I watched House LLC. I've seen clips of this all over TikTok and I was just like, you know what? I'll just watch the damn movie. I watched it and it was okay. I love found footage films. I lived through the height of it, y'all. Like Cloverfield, Blair Witch Project. That was just like my middle school, high school, teen upbringing, and I love that. It made filmmaking possible, or making the impossible feel possible, where David Lynch is right. Just take a camera and start shooting and you can make a picture. Speaking from Inland to Empire. Yeah, I thought this was fine overall. A lot of people seem to hate it, but in terms of like a found footage film, it's just fine. Most of its spine exists on it being sort of like a faux documentary where you have different people talking about this found footage film to support this found footage film. But it's basically about a group of entrepreneurs, very young, who do this thing where they like create haunted houses cross country, and they find this abandoned house and make a haunted house out of it. As like a walkthrough, anybody enjoy those at all? I do. Lo and behold, of course, the house that they use is a haunted house. Fine, overall, I think some of it does feel cheap because it uses the backbone of faux documentary to re-show scenes that had just happened to see the horror in them versus it relying itself based on like horror itself. A major shout out to the clown, super creepy. I hate clowns. And this just, yeah, I hate that clown in that film. Spooky. Very spooky. Still watching horror films, guys. 2015, watched Baskin. This is a Turkish horror film about a group of law enforcement that get a call to this abandoned police station. In that, they find the underbelly of hell. Super psychosexual, about trauma, childhood nightmare, and how one escapes from it all, with the backing of ancestry and honoring your ancestors in a way. Very, very interesting. Gore heavy, so content warning out there. I thought it was just fine overall. I think what it was really missing was money. Sometimes I hate horror films based on like their lack of funding, and it makes me so sad because I shouldn't base anything off of that. Oh god, I just found some of the saturation in this film, like the color grading, just to be so meh. Some of the costume here was just like, god, where'd they find that? Halloween Town? Just bugged me and rubbed me the wrong way. But this could have been really, really good. I think it had some really interesting shots. The horror is suspended in some moments, and it's just really, really fun. Yeah, I thought it was fine overall. Almost done here, guys, I promise. 2 more films. 2006, I watched this very, very DIY horror film called Visions of Suffering. It's a Russian horror film, but it's like this sepia into Y2K into crunchy club scenes around a vampiric noir horror film. It's shot in like a 1:1 aspect ratio. There are just like moments to this film that felt very uncomfortable to me. It is hypersexual, very gory, but it's just done in this like really DIY kind of way where it feels like it's just shot on a camcorder, but also there are like these really awful like early 2000s CGI effects, borderline uncanny valley to camp with like a underlying of really intense horror. It just plays with like that familiarity and unfamiliarity that exists in like your subconscious. Overall, very bloated. It's like 2 hours. It definitely could have been edited down. He does this like, I think the director is like very promising as a storyteller, but there's just like moments in here where it's like he overtells the story, in which there are shots after shots of the same repeated image, and I'm just like, do we need that? But you can tell he has like a very artistic and creative eye towards wanting to tell a story, but it's not entirely there. I think this just could have been edited down. If anyone wants to know, this is like kind of stuff I watched growing up as a teenager. I know, guys, I know. Really concerning. And that is why I am so unwell. But yeah, I thought this was meh. Overall, hard 3 stars that could be 2.5 stars, but bumped it up a star only because I thought how inventive and fresh it felt. I've never seen this perspective before. It feels very Soviet. But yeah, I don't know. Part of like cinema for me is like, have I seen everything in the world? Do I want to see everything in the world? And I'm always surprised when I see something I've never seen before. And to see this like perspective and color choices and storytelling was just really interesting to me. But outside of that, quite sluggish of a horror film. Okay, and last horror film to end my summerween. I think I'll still be watching horror films in August. We'll see. I watched this incredible film last night. Just finished it last night. It's called Anguish from 1987. A Spanish director, but this was filmed in English. Very interesting. It has the woman from Poltergeist, the medium. Anyone know? The really small lady. Loved her in Poltergeist. But she's also in this film, plays this like overbearing mother that hypnotizes her son to pull eyes out of his victims. And I'll leave it at that because just the way that this film unravels is incredible. I've never seen anything like this before. So inventive, so intense, hypnotic in itself, incredibly meta. I'll leave it at that because I really don't want to spoil this for you. And yeah, it goes back to that thing. Have I seen everything in the world? This film goes to show I haven't. And it's just so interesting to see so many interesting, refreshing voices that just like date way back. And I'm just like, wow, there's really so much to discover and uncover and bring back to light. Highly recommend this. It is horror, it is gore, but it's also much more a thriller. This I have to recommend everyone watch because it's just so inventive. I need my like film programming friends or like people out there to bring this film back to light and to like have it shown in theaters, because this is a film that must be returned to the theaters because I think it's so important. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that one I give 4 or 5 stars. I haven't decided yet, but really enjoyed it. Whew, let me breathe. I'll take my sip. What did you watch in July? Anything interesting? Let me know. I love films. I love them just as much as books. I always forget. I have a letterbox. It's downstairs. I write reviews as well. I watch a shit ton of films. That's it. That's all I want to say. I'm gonna go eat some food now. My stomach is like, feed me hungry. As always, be well, do good work, keep in touch. Guys, I'm literally out of thumbnail ideas. Like, I can't be the same. I don't know. It can't be the same all the time, guys. It can't be. What do I do? Ugly spooky faces from me because summerween. Yeah, I think this is what it will be. Okay. Alright. Bye. Love y'all.